The sky burned red as the Xar Empire's fleet descended upon Earth. Massive warships, black as the void, floated above the planet, casting long shadows over cities and oceans. The fleet commander, Vrek Torvash, watched from the bridge of his flagship, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Pathetic," he muttered. For centuries, the Xar Empire had conquered countless worlds. Their enemies had always bowed, broken, or been wiped from existence. Earth would be no different. Vrek turned to his second-in-command, Captain Zalarin. "Scan the planet. I want to know what kind of resistance we're dealing with." Zalarin nodded and tapped the control panel. The ship's scanners hummed as they swept across the planet. The results appeared within seconds. No energy shields, no planetary defenses, no space fleet. Zalarin raised an eyebrow. "Strange. They have weapons, but nothing that could threaten us." Vrek chuckled. "Another weak species." He stepped forward, looking down at Earth as if it were already his. "Send a message." A deep mechanical voice boomed from the fleet's communication system, broadcasting in every language on Earth. "Attention, primitive species. You stand before the Xar Empire. Surrender immediately, and you may be spared. Resist, and your world will burn." The fleet hovered in silence, waiting for a response. Minutes passed, then an hour. But there was nothing. No surrender. No reply. Just silence. Vrek frowned. "Why aren't they answering?" "Maybe they don't understand," Zalarin suggested. Vrek shook his head. "No, every species understands fear." Something was wrong. He ordered his troops to land. The invasion begins. Xar warships broke from the fleet, descending toward Earth's major cities. Their metal hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they deployed thousands of heavily armed soldiers. In New York, Xar drop pods crashed onto the streets, splitting open to reveal squads of alien warriors. They marched through the empty city, their clawed feet clicking against the pavement. "Where is everyone?" one of the soldiers growled. Buildings stood tall, untouched. Streetlights flickered. The wind carried the distant sound of rustling leaves. But there were no humans, no panic, no screams. In Tokyo, Xar soldiers stormed into the city's heart. Markets were abandoned, restaurants half full with uneaten food. It was as if people had vanished. Vrek, watching from his flagship, clenched his fists. This isn't right. The Xar had seen many invasions. The moment their ships appeared, other species fell into chaos. Cities burned. People begged for mercy. But Earth was waiting. The first warning. Inside a dark alley in London, a group of Xar soldiers moved carefully, their rifles raised. One of them, Sergeant Bullock, peered into the shadows. Something moved. A small human girl stood alone in the alley, staring up at them with wide, unafraid eyes. Bullock growled. "Found one. She looks harmless." The little girl tilted her head. "Are you the bad guys?" she asked. Bullock laughed. "Yes, little one. We are." The girl smiled. "Then you should run." A high-pitched whistle filled the air. Before Bullock could react, the building behind him exploded. A fireball swallowed half his squad, sending the rest flying. From the rooftops, shadows moved. Humans emerged, rifles aimed, their eyes cold. They weren't civilians. They were soldiers. And they had just set a trap. The battle begins. Across the planet, hidden human forces struck back. In New York, underground bunkers opened, releasing waves of armored soldiers. They fired railguns and plasma launchers, weapons far beyond what the Xar expected. In Tokyo, drones swarmed the skies, jamming Xar communications. The invaders found themselves cut off from their command. In London, humans fought with terrifying precision. They moved in squads, striking hard and vanishing into the ruins before the Xar could respond. The Xar Empire had expected fear and surrender. Instead, they were met with calm, calculated destruction. Vrek's eyes widened as reports flooded in. "We're losing troops." Zalrin's voice trembled. This isn't a weak species, Commander. They were ready for us." For the first time in his career, Vrek felt something strange. Doubt. And then the final message came. Across every screen on the XR ships, a human face appeared. A woman in a military uniform, calm and composed. She looked directly into the camera and spoke in a steady voice. "Your mistake was thinking we were afraid." The message ended. The silence returned. But this time, it was the XR Empire that felt it. Vrek Torvash paced back and forth on the bridge of his flagship. His claws tapped against the metal floor, a rhythmic clicking that matched the growing tension in the air. The invasion should have been over by now. Earth should have been burning. Its people should have been begging for mercy. But instead, the Tsar Empire was losing. He slammed his fist against the console. How is this possible? Zalrin hesitated before answering. "Our forces are being ambushed in every major city. Human resistance is stronger than we expected." Vrek growled. "We didn't expect any resistance." He turned to the holographic display in front of him. Red markers blinked all over the map, indicating lost troops, destroyed dropships, and entire squads gone silent. This wasn't just a battle. It was a slaughter. In the streets of New York, Tsar soldiers moved in squads, their advanced armor glinting under the city's neon lights. They had switched to defensive tactics, using their superior firepower to hold ground. But it didn't matter. The humans didn't fight fair. A group of Tsar warriors stood at an intersection, their plasma rifles raised. One of them, Sergeant Ruckwell, turned his head sharply as a faint metallic sound echoed through the streets. A small circular object rolled toward them. A grenade. "Scatter," he shouted. Too late. The explosion ripped through their ranks, sending bodies flying. From the shadows, humans emerged, their weapons firing with deadly accuracy. Some carried traditional projectile weapons, but others wielded experimental railguns that punched through car armor like paper. One of the wounded Tsar warriors gasped for breath. His chest plate shattered. He reached for his communicator, his voice weak. "Commander, we are being hunted." The transmission cut off. Vrek clenched his fists. No species had ever hunted the Tsar before. He turned toward Zalrin. "Order the fleet to bomb the cities. I want Earth turned to ash." Zalrin hesitated. "Commander, our ships are experiencing technical failures. Some of our systems err." The lights on the bridge flickered. The main control panels flashed red, and suddenly, a new voice spoke through the ship's communication system. A human voice. "Nice fleet you have up there," the voice said, calm and mocking. "Would be a shame if someone—" "Shut it down." A shockwave surged through the flagship, and the holographic map glitched. Alarms blared. Screens cracked. The XR command crew scrambled to regain control. Vrek's eyes narrowed. What just happened? A terrified officer turned toward him. "The humans. They hacked us." Panic spread through the bridge. The XR Empire's mighty fleet, the most powerful in the galaxy, was losing control of its own ships. Earth wasn't just resisting. Earth was winning. Vrek Torvash stood frozen, his claws gripping the edge of the command console. His mind refused to accept what was happening. The Tsar Empire had conquered countless worlds, crushed rebellions, wiped entire species from existence. And yet here he was, losing to a species that didn't even have interstellar travel. The bridge of his flagship was in chaos. Screens flickered, alarms howled, and officers scrambled to restore control over their systems. Red warning symbols spread across the main display, showing entire warships going dark, weapons shutting down, engines stalling in orbit. How are they doing this? Vrek growled, his voice sharp with frustration. An engineer, his eyes wide with fear, spoke without looking up from his console. "The humans. They've infiltrated our systems. They've hijacked our fleet's eye. Our targeting systems are offline. And the engineer's words were cut short by a sudden boom. The entire ship lurched as something exploded outside. Vrek turned to the viewport, his eyes narrowing. A XR destroyer, one of their most powerful warships, was suddenly spinning out of control. Its engines flickered, then died completely. Moments later, it collided with another warship, sending a fireball rippling through the fleet. More ships followed. One by one, the XR warships turned against each other, their navigation systems failing, their weapons locking onto their own allies. Some simply powered down, left defenseless in the cold void of space. A chilling realization settled over Vrek. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were tearing the car apart from the inside. A new voice crackled through the speakers, smooth and confident. "I was hoping you'd put up more of a fight," the voice said. "But I guess the great Xar Empire isn't so great after all." It was a human. Vrek's jaw tightened. "Who are you?" The voice laughed softly. "Call me Captain Reynolds, but names don't really matter, do they? What matters is that your empire thought Earth was an easy target. And now your fleet is falling apart above our skies." Zalarin looked at Vrek, panic in his reptilian eyes. "Commander, if we don't regain control soon, we'll be completely vulnerable." Vrek forced himself to breathe, shut down external access, reset all systems. The engineers scrambled, inputting override commands, trying desperately to block the human hackers from their ship's controls. The lights flickered, then stabilized. Some of the disabled ships in orbit came back online. But just as hope flickered through Vrek's mind, something else happened. The humans launched their counterattack. On Earth's surface, hidden launch facilities, missile silos that had remained dormant for decades, suddenly came to life. Doors rumbled open across military bases, hidden within mountains, buried beneath the oceans, concealed in places the car hadn't fought to scan. Then, in the span of a few heartbeats, the sky erupted with fire. Missiles streaked toward the car fleet. They weren't primitive weapons. They were designed for war in space. Hypersonic warheads, railgun artillery fired from orbital defense stations disguised as satellites, EMP pulses aimed at the car's remaining warships. The entire planet was fighting back. Vrek's breath hitched as he watched a wave of destruction rise from below. The first missile struck a Xar battlecruiser. It didn't just explode, it disintegrated. The second wave hit 3 ships in formation, causing their shields to shatter like glass. Within moments, half the fleet was in flames. Zalarin turned to Vrek, his voice breaking. "Commander, we need to retreat." Vrek's claws dug into the metal railing. His pride screamed at him to stay and fight. The Xar Empire had never retreated before. But this wasn't just a battle. This was a massacre. The humans had played them from the start. And now, the hunters had become the hunted. Vrek Torvash had never felt fear before. Not real fear. Not the kind that tightened in his chest and made his thoughts spiral out of control. But now, as he watched the XR fleet burning above Earth, he felt something cold settle in his gut. This was not an invasion. This was a trap, and they had walked right into it. The holographic display on his command console updated in real time, but the numbers didn't lie. Over 40% of the XR fleet was either destroyed or disabled. More ships were falling apart every second. The mighty XR war machine, which had once brought terror to the galaxy, was dying over a single planet. Vrek turned toward Zalarin. "Status report." The officer's face was pale, his scaled hands shaking as he checked the damage reports. "Commander, our shields are at 20%. We've lost control of half our fleet. Enemy firepower is overwhelming our defenses. If we don't..." A sudden blast rocked the ship. Sparks flew from overhead consoles, and the bridge was thrown into darkness for several seconds before emergency lights flickered back on. Vrek stumbled but caught himself. What was that? A terrified officer shouted from the weapons station. Direct hit. A human railgun slug just punched through our starboard hull. Vrek's claws curled into fists. Railguns? That was impossible. The humans had nothing capable of piercing Tsar warship armor. At least, that's what their intelligence reports had said. But those reports had been wrong. Another explosion erupted outside, sending debris spiraling past the viewport. Vrek turned just in time to see another Tsar warship split in half, its remains crashing into a burning battleship below. The humans had turned the tide. And now, they were hunting. A new alert flashed on Vrek's console, an incoming transmission. But this wasn't from his own fleet. It was from the humans. With a snarl, he slammed his claw against the console, accepting the transmission. The holographic screen shifted, and once again, Captain Reynolds appeared. His expression was calm, almost amused, as if this wasn't a battle at all, but rather a lesson. Well, Commander Vrek, Reynolds said, tilting his head slightly. You don't look as confident as you did when you first arrived. Vrek bared his fangs. You dare mock the Tsar Empire. Reynolds chuckled. I'm not mocking you. I'm just surprised. I expected more from a so-called unstoppable empire. But here you are, struggling against a primitive species. Vrek's tail lashed in frustration. Enjoy your victory while you can, human. Reinforcements will come. Your little tricks won't save you from the full power of the Empire. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. Reinforcements. Oh, you mean the ships waiting outside your solar system? Vrek froze. Reynolds grinned. Yeah, we know about them. And well, let's just say they're not coming. Before Vrek could demand an explanation, another explosion rocked the flagship. This time, it was inside the ship. Alarms wailed. Smoke filled the bridge. Officers scrambled to put out fires. Zalrin's eyes went wide. Commander, they've boarded us. Vrek turned sharply. What? More alerts flashed. Multiple Tar ships were reporting intruders. Humans were no longer just fighting from the ground or the skies. They were inside the XR ships now, and they were tearing them apart from within. A voice came over the ship's intercom. A cold, emotionless voice that did not belong to any Tar officer. Attention, invaders, the voice said. This is Earth's resistance. Your time is up. Vrek felt his throat tighten. The XR Empire had never faced anything like this before. But now, for the first time, they were the ones being invaded. Vrek Torvash could hear the battle raging within his own ship. Gunfire. Explosions. Screams. The sounds of a warship being gutted from the inside. It was unthinkable. The humans were supposed to be prey. Weak. Inferior. But here they were, fighting like predators. The bridge doors slammed open. A squad of Tar warriors rushed inside, their armor scorched, their weapons raised. Their leader, a battle-worn captain, saluted hurriedly. Commander, the humans, they are inside the ship. They are using our own corridors against us. Vrek narrowed his eyes. Explain. The captain breathed heavily, his mandibles twitching. They aren't charging blindly. They know the layout of our warships. They are hitting key systems, engines, life support, power cores. They know where to strike. A cold realization settled over Vrek. They studied us. It all made sense now. The humans had planned for this invasion long before the XR fleet arrived. They had let the Empire believe Earth was weak, and when the invasion began, they sprang the trap. The thought sent a shiver down Vrek's spine. A deep boom echoed through the ship, followed by another. The floor beneath them trembled. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Zalrin checked the displays. His voice was sharp with panic. Explosions in the reactor chamber. Commander, we're losing power. Vrek's claws gripped the console. This couldn't be happening. He turned back to the captain. Where are the intruders now? The warrior hesitated. They are. Before he could finish, a new voice cut through the bridge. Right here. Everyone turned. At the far end of the bridge, near the emergency access hatch, a human soldier stood. Tall, armored, weapon raised. And he wasn't alone. More humans emerged from the smoke, their weapons gleaming under the dim emergency lights. Their faces were covered by tactical visors, their armor reinforced with plating that Carr had never seen before. Elite soldiers. Human shock troopers. The captain barely had time to react before a sharp crack echoed through the air. A single gunshot. The bullet pierced his skull, dropping him instantly. The bridge erupted into chaos. SAR officers drew their weapons. The humans fired first. Vrek ducked as plasma bolts and bullets screamed across the room. His crew fell one by one. The humans moved with deadly precision. Every shot counted. Every movement was calculated. The fight was over in seconds. Vrek rose slowly, his heart pounding. His warriors, the finest the Empire had to offer, lay dead around him. And standing before him, weapons still raised, was a single human. Captain Reynolds. Vrek bared his teeth. So, this is how it ends. Reynolds gave him a slow, almost pitying smile. For you, maybe. Vrek tensed as Reynolds tossed something at his feet. A small metallic device. A detonator. You might want to run, Commander, Reynolds said, stepping back. Your ship's about to have a very bad day. The moment the words left his mouth, a distant explosion shook the ship. This time, it wasn't just another hit. It was the core detonating. Vrek's mind raced. The humans had planted charges in the reactor. He had minutes, no, seconds, before the entire warship exploded. Reynolds and his soldiers had already begun retreating toward the emergency hatch. Vrek had a choice. Stay and die with his ship, or flee like a coward. His claws clenched, his pride burned. But survival was more important. With a growl of fury, Vrek turned and ran. Vrek Torvash sat in the cramped escape pod, staring at the ruins of his once great fleet. His claws dug into the armrests, his tail coiling in frustration. Thousands of warships, millions of warriors, all reduced to wreckage and corpses floating in the void. The XR Empire had never suffered a defeat like this, and it was at the hands of humans. The idea burned him. A species the Empire had dismissed as weak, primitive, insignificant had not only survived, but annihilated their greatest fleet. A sharp beep interrupted his thoughts. The pod's AI announced in its cold, mechanical voice, "Incoming vessel detected. Trajectory. Pursuit." Vrek's blood ran cold. He turned to the viewport, and his stomach twisted. A human warship was following him. Not one of their massive battleships, but a sleek, deadly-looking strike cruiser. Fast, precise, designed for hunts. And now, it was hunting him. Another beep, a transmission request. Vrek hesitated. He already knew who it was. Gritting his teeth, he pressed the console. Captain Reynolds' voice filled the pod. "Going somewhere, Commander." Vrek's jaw tightened. "If you're here to gloat, get it over with." Reynolds chuckled. "Oh, I'm not gloating. I just thought you should know. Your Empire hasn't sent reinforcements. And they won't." Vrek stiffened. "Lies. I wish." Reynolds' tone was almost pitying. "But we cracked your communications. Your homeworld received your distress calls." Vrek's breath caught in his throat. And they ignored them. Silence. Vrek's mind reeled. No, that wasn't possible. The XR Empire didn't abandon its warriors. They would send more ships. They would avenge this defeat. Wouldn't they? Reynolds continued, his voice calm. "See, we humans have a saying. Empires don't die in battle. They die in betrayal." Vrek's claws trembled over the console. Betrayal. His fleet had been the strongest in the Empire. His mission had been to crush humanity, to show the galaxy the might of the Khar. And now, the Empire had left him for dead. Reynolds' voice broke the silence again. "So, Commander, what happens now?" Vrek exhaled slowly, forcing himself to think. He had no fleet, no empire to return to, no reinforcements, no allies. But he still had one thing: his hatred. And a warrior of the Kar did not die in exile. His claws tightened into fists. "You think this is over, human?" Vrek growled. "This is only the beginning." Reynolds sighed. "See, I figured you'd say that." Another alert flashed on Vrek's console. Weapons lock detected. The human warship had just targeted his escape pod. Vrek snarled. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would," Reynolds cut in. "But I won't." The targeting lock vanished. The human warship wasn't firing. Vrek frowned. "Why?" Reynolds' voice was colder now. "Because I want your empire to know what happened here. I want you to crawl back and tell them Earth is not weak. That next time, when they come, we'll be waiting. And it won't just be humanity. The whole galaxy is watching now." Vrek's breath was ragged, his mind racing. Reynolds wasn't killing him because he wanted the Ktar to feel fear, to know that this war had already changed. Vrek leaned forward. "You may have won this battle, human." His voice was low, dangerous. "But war is not decided in a single day." Reynolds chuckled. "You're right. But tell me, Commander, how many more fleets can your empire afford to lose?" Silence. For the first time, Vrek had no answer. The transmission ended. Vrek's escape pod drifted, alone in the darkness of space. He had come to Earth as a conqueror. Now he was leaving as a messenger. And in the depths of his heart, a terrible realization began to take root. The XR Empire had thought humanity was just another species to dominate. But they had been wrong. Horribly, fatally wrong.